today. You know, I'm often sitting in a restaurant or just walking down the street and someone will walk up to me and ask me, you know, how the devil do you come up with some of the topics for your show? And this is one of those particular shows that I basically went to our producers with and I said, you know, I really have to do a show, the show to end all shows about UFOs. And the reason is because I was watching television one night and I'm watching a program called Unsolved Mysteries. And I do that on occasion. I know some of you do too, right? Right? All right. So I'm watching Unsolved Mysteries, and I'm seeing this report about UFOs. And I looked at it, and I thought for a second, you know, it sounded kind of credible. The people sounded kind of credible, but, you know, I didn't know. And I was thinking about it. And then the next day, I turn on the news, and there's a news program about UFOs. And then the next day after that, there's a news program talking about, you know, people that are rallying about UFOs out front of the UN. And I thought, if I do a show, and this is true, about UFOs, what would happen? And then, woo! And then I came back, and I thought to myself, maybe I ought to leave UFOs alone. And then I realized, no, I'm not going to leave them alone, because this rally, this is what people were holding up at the rally. It says UFOs are real, and the government knows about it. And I said, wait a second, the government knows about it, then the American public needs to know about it, and we may as well do a show about it. So today, joining us is Karla Turner, who says that she and her family have had many encounters, not one, not two, but many encounters with aliens, and that ever since they've come forward, the government has just been harassing them and been all over their backs. And also joining us is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jim Romansky, who was portrayed in the show that I saw as a person who was a volunteer fireman who was called to search for a downed aircraft. And then when Jim got there, he discovered that it really was a crashed alien spacecraft, which the military rode in on, came in with trucks and people, took the spacecraft around, harassed them and said, keep your mouth shut. Thank you both for joining us on the show. And Jim, I'm going to start with you. I want you to describe what you saw when you arrived in this field where this supposed downed aircraft was.
Well, first of all, Montel, we were in a field hunting for this downed aircraft, and the first rescue team already found it and radioed into the fire hall, gave the coordinates, and it was down in front of us, and we hightailed it out of our search area, went down into there, and we got there expecting a smashed up airplane. Wings, fuselage, etc. No such character. Came down through the woods, and here's this humongous piece of metal laying there. I mean, this thing I've described time and time again as a very large acorn-shaped object. The front of it, or I presume was the front of it, was pushed down into the dirt where the way it came in and landed after it took out the top of the trees and brush and everything coming in. Came back in an oblong shape. Around the bottom was what I call a bumper, and then the bottom was perfectly flat. No signs of propulsion or anything. There was no doors, no windows. There was no ways of getting in this thing, at least none that I seen. There was no seams on it, no rivets, nothing. The only thing I seen was this bumper around it, and it had these real strange markings on it, which I've often referred to as similar to the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. So, as a volunteer fireman, we did what we were supposed to do. Find the crash site, do a preliminary investigation for survivors or treat anybody with it, which we didn't because there was none that we could see. There was no way of getting in this object. The first team had already radioed in its position. We're there 10, 15 minutes all talking around, doing a preliminary search, wondering what we discovered. Two gentlemen come down through the woods, trench coats on, ramrod stiff, crew cut. All right, this is a restricted area. You're now ordered to get out of here. Now, wait a minute, I'm a civilian. You ain't going to order me nothing. But as a fireman, I'm being relieved from what I'm doing. So I got out of there. We're going out through the woods. We didn't go no more than 15, 20 feet. And I know from me to you, here come the military. Full uniforms, equipment, marching right down through the woods with flashlights. This is December. It's late in the evening. It's cold. It's wet.
How far away were you from a military base?
Well, the closest base that I knew of was Pittsburgh, which was approximately 45 miles to the west.
So within 15 minutes of your arrival at the site, the military was there?
You got it.
Okay. All right. Now, what did they say to you after this happened? I mean, I know there were several members of the report I saw on Unsolved Mysteries. Several members of the community were there. People, right? Other people that part of the community were there and present and were all told to leave.
there was no press or media at the immediate crash site.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know up on top of the hill, because I'd come in through the side, the military had taken over a farmhouse. I mean, from what I understand, military brass. They took over up there, did all their orders and whatever they were doing from up there, and that's where I presume that the military who came down through the woods came from. Because when we went out, we had to walk back to the fire hall, which was approximately the way we had to go, I'd say a good mile. But by the time we got back to the fire hall, it was wall-to-wall military. I mean, there was trucks and jeeps and cars. There was guards on the door.
Did anybody say to you, I don't want you talking about this, don't say a word about this, or were you, with that term, debriefed?
What they did, I mean, these people virtually told us just to shut up, get to your vehicles, and be quiet.
And you did what you were told?
One of the guys even asked the guards at the door, look, I got to go to the bathroom. Now, these guys are standing there with weapons. Well, they were loaded or not, I don't know. None of us was brave enough to try to find out. He said, I got to go to the bathroom. They said, see those weeds over there? Use them. Well, by that time, we just headed for the trucks.
All right. Now, Karla, your family has been and had encounters with extraterrestrials, I guess is what we'll call it, several times. But since you have been reporting this, you said that the military and people have been harassing you. Is that true?
Well, even before we reported it, Montel, it began the first time we even contacted anyone in UFO research to help us find out what was happening with our family. We met 2 different times late into the evening with the UFO research group in Dallas, and both times we left there in the middle of the night, we were followed by unmarked white cars through 3 towns, because it was three or four towns away from where we lived. This was the beginning of human surveillance. Then we began to have telephone interference only when we would be discussing UFO subjects.
What do you mean by telephone interference?
Talking with someone else about the subject in the middle of a conversation, and from time to time, particular subjects seemed to trigger the interference. We would be in the middle of a conversation, and there'd be a series of loud clicks on the phone, and the phone would go dead. Sometimes people would, voices would come on the phone and drown one person out from hearing the other. We would get harassing phone calls in the middle of the night.
Harassing from who?
Never identified.
What did they say?
Nothing.
So people just call, ring, and then hang up?
Right, right. Which we hadn't had before. I mean, I know you do get some calls, but these were almost regular. Then we began to have helicopter activity over a house we'd lived in for 5 years with no helicopter activity. Once we had begun to report these things within the UFO community, we began to have helicopters that often were military, sometimes were so totally unmarked, black with the black glass. In the middle of the night, so low, the windows would almost break in the house. Sometimes 9 a day, as many as 9 a day, buzzing our house.
Do you live near an airport?
No, well, we had lived in the house for 5 years with no helicopters over the house. Now we began to have them time and time again. I got them on photo and video as much as I could, but we could never find the source of these. And then my daughter-in-law, who was in the ROTC program at the university, was asked to sign up for what duty she wanted after graduation, and she chose meteorology, and she was a physics major, and her ROTC sergeant said, no, you can't do that. You've got to sign up for R&D. Don't you want to work with the UFOs and the alien projects? Don't you want to know what the Air Force really knows that we don't tell anyone else? And this terrified her so much she dropped out of the program because she knew somebody had been listening enough to us under surveillance to know she was part of this ongoing activity. Whoa. And the final thing was when my husband was abducted by military personnel in November of '88, drugged, questioned, and threatened about our involvement, what we knew about the aliens and what our family had been involved with them, and when he wouldn't answer, he was knocked out and doesn't know what happened to him after that.
But he recalls being abducted.
Yes, he does. He recalls the center of the abduction experience. There is a mind control procedure that can be used to keep you so dazed and confused you don't know what's going on until it sort of lifts where you can be questioned, and then they knocked him totally back out.
I have a silly question, though. Did he ever report to anybody? Somebody came in my house and grabbed me and took me out and drugged me? He never reported it?
No, he did not report it because he had absolutely no evidence of it except the experience.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, when we come back, we're going to meet a UFO investigator who's going to come out here and talk about the fact that he gives guided tours to a secret installation where he says the military is working not only on alien spacecraft and on alien research, but in cahoots with aliens. Somebody's laughing, but I don't know. And we'll find out about it as soon as we come back. We'll be back right after this. aliens, and I know a lot of you sitting out there in the TV land are going to go like this, click, I don't want to hear about aliens, but I'm going to tell you something. I've been watching television lately, and as of late, you've seen more and more rallies about the government knows about UFOs. You've seen more and more information being printed about UFOs, and I just thought we would do the UFO show to end all UFO shows. And later on in the show, I know a lot of you saw the movie Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton. Well, later on in the show, he's going to come out and talk about his experience personally of what happened. But joining us right now is Mr. Sean Morton, who is a UFO investigator who says that this nation, conducts alien and human joint effort space projects in the Nevada desert in an area that's been known for a long time as this area called Area 51. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Now, tell me what's going on at Area 51.
Well, Area 51 is 135 miles north of Las Vegas, and it sits in a box at the center of the Nellis testing range. It's guarded by private security, and since 1986, there have been these incredible spacecraft, what can only be termed...
Can you see this monitor back here? Take a look up there.
Oh, yes. That's... I took this video at great risk to my own life. I actually snuck into a section of the base where this is the first videotape that was ever taken of Area 51. This is the most top-secret U.S. military installation that the government maintains. Now, what you're about to see here is an object actually coming in from space that's coming across the front. Those hangar lights that you see in the center, that's the largest aircraft hangar in the world. It's jokingly called by the people that work at the base, it's called Hangar 18. Now, this is one of the objects that I've videotaped while I was out there. This same object was also seen over Belgium on another Unsolved Mysteries program, which you may have seen. And this object I videotaped as I was standing at what's known as the Black Mailbox on the road at Area 51. I've been taking tours of people out there ever since I saw my first UFO at Area 51 in 1991. I had been a UFO investigator for a while, and I'd never actually seen a craft until I got within a couple of hundred yards of a huge 40-foot disc that looked kind of like a cereal bowl turned upside down with like a teacup on the top of it with an orange-reddish glow that was coruscating around the outside of the disc. And this thing lit up like the sun, and myself and my friend had our faces very badly burned by this object, and we watched it basically do these amazing maneuvers for about 10 minutes or so, and then it just made its way off down the valley. Since then, I've conducted about 50 tours to the area where I take people just like you and I, civilians, newspaper people, anybody that wants to come. We rent a van, we go out there, we camp out right next to the fence, and we watch them fly these UFOs basically on a timetable basis.
But when you say UFOs, if you watch them fly on a basis, I know that, and I'm not going to try to give away any government secrets, but that area is a test area for U.S. aircraft also.
Yes, it is.
Aircraft like, the new stealth bombers and stealth fighters, and I can remember a day back, I spent 18 years in the military myself, but I can remember a day back in, let's say, 1973, 74, and 75 when I was in the military where they didn't even tell me about a plane that's called the SR-71, which everybody, I know if you're in New York, when you go by the Intrepid Museum down, along the shoreline, west side, you see this big black airplane sitting on there? That plane was top secret until 3 or 4 years ago. And everybody in the world thought that plane was a UFO because it flew faster than any plane ever built on this planet. Why could these things that you were seeing not just be U.S. aircraft that they're not willing to let you know about yet?
Well, this is one of the things, and Montel, you have a background in military intelligence. I believe it was in the Navy. So you'll know that obviously the military doesn't tell everybody everything. They keep things secret for years and years and years.
Certainly.
And people who don't think that the military can keep a secret are just flat out wrong. These objects, most of which are disc-shaped, can do 90-degree right-angle turns, can go from 0 to almost 40,000 miles an hour. We're not just talking about between Mach 6 and Mach 18 here, about 25,000 miles an hour. I had some other videotape here, which I'm not sure we're going to show on the program, of an object, a disc, that actually appears from what looks like hyperspace, does a step motion, and then goes from 0 right out of the screen. With some other Japanese camera people that I took out there, we watched a large red disc-shaped object make hyperspace jumps where it would actually blink out and then reappear 50 degrees on the other side of the sky within a 20th of a second.
Okay, but let me I'm not trying, I've got to challenge you. You're here, and I'm going to ask you the hard questions.
Please.
If this was 1922, and in 1922, someone said a human being could get in an airplane and fly at 3, 4, 5, 6 times, 7 times the speed of sound, everyone would have told you it's an alien. And in 1958-59, when the SR-71 program started, which is, again, it's a Blackbird. I know you've seen it on commercials. They sell, videos about it now. It's a plane that was the fastest flying aircraft on the planet. No one in America ever knew that this plane existed until about 1980. And then when they found out about it, they declassified it because I'm sure they made something better. So this is 1993. And right now, what you may be looking at may be something we'll finally find out about in the year 2013.
Well, the scientists and the guards and the master sergeants of transportation that I have spoken to at Area 51 have not only said that they have seen these unusual beings on the base, we're talking about the alien grays that they've seen at Area 51, that they've seen bodies, that they've seen actual physical alien beings about 3.5, 4 feet tall. This one fellow who was engaged in the operation of taking apart a disc, and they were told that these were alien craft that had crashed, exactly like Jim was talking about, that they take them to Area 51 and they tear these things apart to try to figure out how they work, that some of them are in perfect working order, and they are teaching our pilots how to fly these things. In this one particular story this fellow told me, they were working on one of these discs when 2 guards came out on one far side of the hangar, and they had a being in between them that was some 3.5 feet tall with the gray skin, moved out between the 2 guards, walked across the other side of the hangar. These people all stopped and stared at it. Another officer came out from the door and turned around and screamed at them, "What are you looking at? Turn around, go back to work." And this thing sort of moved in an unusual marionette-type manner across the hangar bay, and everyone stopped and froze and looked at it and then went back to work when this guy began to yell at them. And my contention is that this crashed alien technology that Jim was talking about, that the Roswell incident was talking about, has all been taken to these military installations, is being taken apart and being used to either fabricate what we call HPACs, human-piloted alien craft, or fabrications of these objects. And the technology, the one point I want to make...
Hold on. I'm going to let you make that one come. We got a lot more show to go, but I want to introduce somebody. Joining us right now is Hollywood actress Sheila McRae, famed actress. And she says that her husband, Gordon McRae, talked about seeing aliens also, or spacecraft. Is that correct?
That's right.
So I got to take a little break. You know what this is about. Right. Commercials. Let me take a break. When I come back, I want to talk about it. So we'll be back right after this. We'll talk more with you, Sean, all of you. And just because I think a lot of people, the jury is out, and we need you to help us understand. We'll be back right after this.
When in the New York area, why not be a member of our studio audience? For complimentary tickets to the Montel Williams Show, call 212-840-1700 or write to us at 1500 Broadway, Suite 700, New York, New York, 10036. Please be sure to include your phone number.
About UFOs, we've been talking about whether or not they're real or not, and there are several people who said they have seen them. And Sheila, you said that your husband again had seen them once at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Field, right?
He saw them, asked you to come. You didn't get a chance to see those. Then on an airplane flight across country,
right,
he saw something else. What happened when you landed?
Well, from the excitement and sort of joy of everybody talking, the 2 people who had seen it on the right side and the captain and co-pilot, they had radioed ahead, and because Gordon McRae was a celebrity, they were going to have radio there. We got down. Radio people seemed rather excited. I believe there was a television camera too, and Gordon was excited, and the captain, he said, "Let's get together for a drink. This is wonderful, And
he talked about it on camera?
Oh, yeah.
What he saw?
And by the time we got in to get our bags at LAX, he was being paid, and we thought it was the car. It was Jack Warner who had heard that.
The president of Warner
There were
Brothers.
no delayed broadcasts. And he said, he used to call Gordon Mr. Muscles. Now listen, Mr. Muscles, I don't want you going and saying things like that. This is just garbage. If there's anything out there, it's ours. Later, the captain called us and was quite upset and said, we shouldn't talk about this anymore, because I got a call from Howard Hughes saying to me, don't talk about it like that, Captain, because if it isn't ours, it could upset the people. And that's what I don't understand. Jim tells me that he has pictures of those little beings that I saw that day in the Major Kehoe picture, and he also told me that he knows the doctor who did the autopsy.
Well, okay, hold on a minute. I want to bring on some other guests real quick, because joining us right now is Mr. Travis Walton, who says he was driving home from work when an alien spacecraft captured him and took him aboard its craft. And his story was featured in the movie that's called Fire in the Sky, and it's now available on Paramount Home Video, so you need to take a look at that and take a look at this tape.
Stop, Mike! Stop the truck!
said to him.
My God. Now, wait a minute. And that's exactly what happened to you. Is that correct, sir?
That's right. It was 18 years ago, November 5th, 1975. There were 7 of us. We just finished a hard day's work in the woods, cutting down trees. This is a remote forested region of northern Arizona. And we loaded our chainsaws in the back of this truck. It was a double cab truck, so the 7 of us could ride in one truck. We're headed home. It's starting to get dark. We saw this light coming through the trees.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
And when we finally got where we could see the source of this light, we saw this glowing object hovering there. And it was unmistakable. It was less than 100 feet away. It was clearly defined. It was not any glowing ball of gas. We could see what this was.
Okay, and then what happened? I mean, because I'm sorry, a lot of people have not seen the movie, so why don't you tell us briefly what happened?
Well, as soon as it came into clear view, somebody yelled out, "It's a spaceship," or "It's a flying saucer," or something like that, and they stopped the truck, and I threw open the door, and I headed towards this thing. When you're in the woods, you know, you catch a glimpse of an animal and it's gone real quick, and so I assumed this thing was just going to take off, and so I got out of the truck and hurried towards it, thinking that it would just be gone in an instant. As I got up closer to it, it started to move, and the sound started to get louder, and so the guys in the truck were yelling at me to get away from there, get back in the truck, and just as I raised up to do that, to get away from there, something hit me. I just felt a numbing shock, and the guys in the truck said they saw a powerful bolt of energy come out of the bottom of this craft and hit me. They said it just looked like a grenade went off in front of me, threw me back through the air, and they thought it had killed me.
I understand that the government will keep things from us for security reasons, but I do not understand if UFOs really do exist, why the big secret about it? Why hide?
Well,
Why?
you know, that's almost like the perfect lead-in for our next guest, because joining us right now is Mr. James McGahee, who was a retired Air Force major, and he is not here to talk on behalf of the Air Force or anybody else, but he says that there is no government cover-up whatsoever when it comes to UFOs. Thank you also for joining us. That is a perfect introduction to you, because why would the government cover it up, first off, if there really was UFOs?
Well, there might be some reasons to cover up. It's certainly in the early days of when the Air Force was in fact investigating UFOs, there were certainly worse classified material, but it was largely because of intelligence reasons, and largely in 1953 there was the Robertson report actually put out a classified document, secret. By the way, the highest that Blue Book was ever classified was secret, which is a rather low level.
Blue Book is the code
Blue
term
Book is
used
the
by
Air Force investigation of UFOs.
Of UFOs, right.
It didn't start out that. It started out as Project Sign, then Project Grudge, and became Project Blue Book. And that was ended in 1969. And in fact, the Air Force regulation today very explicitly says no member of the United States Air Force may take a UFO report. It's a violation of Air Force regulation. That's a court-martial offense. I would suggest if anyone doubts me, call any Air Force base in the United States and try to report a UFO and see what happens. They're going to, it explicitly says in the regulation that you will refer anyone that calls the Air Force to local law enforcement agencies.
Okay, but now if that's true, and then we listen to Sean, can we roll that tape again that Sean saw out there at this Area 51? Sean, you even have like a recording, right, of audio that goes along with some of this, correct?
Well, this is... You want to play this now?
Well, let me see the tape first, because if this is true, what is this then?
What you just saw was the guard shack, and we're on top of a hill which is called Whitesides, and right here you're seeing the Area 51 facility. Right there in the center of the screen is the largest aircraft hangar in the world, and those lights light up whenever you have an object actually coming in from space. Or from a test run. Now, the saucers are actually kept behind this facility about 12 miles in another place called Papoose Lake. At exactly 4:50 a.m.
Let me bother you for a second, because where are you at right now?
We're up on a hill that was the only high ground that the military didn't confiscate back in 1986. They confiscated 89,000 acres of public land just to keep people like myself from doing what you just saw, looking down on the base at that facility. This object here, it looked at first like a star until I zoomed in on it with the super lens that I had on the camera, and we saw that there was definition on it, that it was a large disc-shaped object that had edges on the side that looked very much like an object that I had seen that I'd gotten within a few hundred yards of about a year before.
Now, James, I mean, you're seeing this. What is this? This is
what I'm seeing there looks very much like a bright light that's out of focus on a video camera. That's all it is.
Okay.
One of the things we didn't show though on the videotape, on the things we didn't show on the videotape, which it doesn't show up that well on a TV monitor, was objects literally appearing from out of nowhere and going from 0 to almost 60,000 miles an hour. And I'm just sorry that they didn't show the object, because we had it computer analyzed as far as the space. There are 30 video frames per second. You can tell how fast something is moving in a video frame.
Okay, hold on just a second. Wait, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Wait a second.
There's Travis and the gentleman on the left. Have you ever subjected yourself to both a polygram and a psychological analysis over the things that you allegedly experienced or observed?
Yeah, I've taken a battery of psychiatric examinations and a perfectly normal pattern of scores.
And that's all like addressed in the movie.
3 separate polygraph tests.
What? That's all addressed in your movie also, right?
Montel, I might point out the first polygraph test he took, he failed.
Well, that test has been declared invalid by 2 of the top experts in the world.
It was a top polygraph examiner in the state of Arizona.
Okay, so wait, I got to take a break. Hold on, I'm sorry, I know we're running. This is quick. I'm gonna let you in a second. But look, I want to hear what you have recorded, because not only do you have a video, but you have some audio. But don't play it yet. As soon as we come back from this break, you can play that, and we'll listen to some audio of a real spacecraft, and then maybe you can tell us what that is. We'll be back right after this. Whether or not they're real or not, and we have Travis here again from this movie. A lot of people have seen it. They've rented it in the Fire in the Sky. And again, whether it's a polygraph test or this or that you took, there are a lot of people in this country. I've talked to several people before we put the show together who say that they believe you 100%. Why do you think, I mean, you have to convince us now one more time, but why should we believe this is really happening to you? Why couldn't we think that maybe you just, when you were younger, you took some heavy-duty pharmaceuticals and you got a problem? You know what I mean? And
that was one theory. That was one theory. I mean, they threw everything at me, but you got 6 witnesses to this. So do 7 people experience identical hallucinations?
Okay. And well, there is this thing about group hallucinations. There is a thing about group hallucinations.
Leaders in the UFO field now are advocating, the Bud Hopkins, the David Jacobs, that in fact the alien spacecraft are invisible, and when they come to abduct people, they're invisible, so you can't see them. And of course, that's an interesting concept, since I don't understand how matter can be invisible.
Well, let me ask you this, Major.
But matter can be invisible.
Hold on a minute, hold on, Jim.
Let me ask you this. I have a daughter and a son that both went into the military within the last 2 or 3 years. One went in the Marine Corps, one went in the U.S. Air Force. My daughter come to me from the United States Marine Corps, and she said, "Dad, your name come up on a computer as my father. I had to sign a statement saying I would never ask or request for any information from Kecksburg." My son had to sign 2 statements.
Oh, about you? About yourself?
Pardon?
Any information about yourself? Your daughter had to sign a paper that says she would not ask for any information about you?
Not about me, but about Kecksburg. Because my name come up as her father.
Okay, but you know what?
Then, no, wait a minute, Montel.
Okay.
Then my son in the U.S. Air Force had to sign 2 papers. One.
Well, Jim, wait, just jump to the chase, because part of the chase here is the fact that I'm telling you, I had some of the highest clearances this country has to offer. I've been through files on top of files on top of files. I still ain't seen nothing yet.
But did you have a need to know?
But
you didn't have a need to know.
Yeah, but that's also not true.
My son goes in the Air Force, and they tell him he can't even request to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for duty, because I seen something, and that's where my UFO is sitting today.
Maybe his MOS was something that they didn't have a qualification for at Wright-Patterson.
His MOS has nothing to do with it.
Okay, all right, hold on a minute.
The government is covering this up. They don't want no one to know. They don't want no one to get access to anything, because they're afraid people will find out the truth. The technology, you was in the third.
Wait a second, hold on.
You really believe the technology we got today We came from up here?
Wait.
Maybe some of it did.
Hold on.
Montel, you know why I think the government doesn't want to do it? If we don't treat the people that are on this earth who are of a different color, or a different background, a different religion, with respect, what do they think we're going to do to the aliens?
Yeah, but you know what?
That's
I would have
probably-
bought that. I would buy that if this was 1950, where this place was running around being crazy. But right now, we don't care. So if an alien came in, we try to shoot it, which is exactly what I'm hoping somebody does. Shoot it down. Let me see it. I want to see one right there. Shoot it down. Because let me tell you, that is the point about this oil. I've seen tape after tape after tape after tape of fast-flying UFOs, slow-flying UFOs, low-flying UFOs, medium-flying UFOs, and the slower ones, I know if we had to, we could shoot it down. And we
What
haven't shot
about the
down
one
yet.
that DeForest Kelly saw in 1941 in February
I wasn't
over Los
born then.
Angeles?
But I really wasn't. I wasn't around. I'm just saying that no one can corroborate and give us really locked-on proof. Hold on a second. Let me get this guy's question. Let me get his question.
May I,
Yes, sir.
My question is directed to Sean. Sean, when you were taking that video of the, I guess, the UFO, why did you not follow it to the ground when actually see it land? Where you, it must have been at least 20,000 feet up.
Because the place that he was at is a base that has.
But he had a
authority.
zoom lens, though. If he can catch that at 20,000 feet or wherever it was, it must have been at least at 10,000 feet.
The object that I saw, and we saw the same object later on that night, about 6 miles from me, floating or hovering within 50 and probably 100 yards off the ground. I videotaped it, and I sent the videotape in here. It looks like that same thing, except it's dark, and this object is moving about. I handed my video camera it was on a tripod. I gave it to this girl who was there. I jumped in my car, and I raced after this thing. Now, this is the middle of the desert. This is the middle of no place. This whole city exists just on the other side of this hill. Now, we're on the public side of the valley, and I tore after this thing. And as I was about halfway down this road, suddenly there were these two Jeeps with their lights off that were four-wheeling through the desert on either side of me, just going hell-bent for weather.
You were in a classified area.
Yeah.
Well, I was
That's an Air Force base.
No, I was on public land when this happened.
But it
I was
doesn't
on
matter.
public
You were
land.
heading towards that base.
And I was heading towards this object, and the two trucks converged on the front of the road so that there were 4 trucks on the road. All of them, all at once, flashed their lights on. The light bars, the whole thing, all 4 of these trucks formed a solid wall in front of me. I stopped the car, I leaned out the window, I opened the door to the car to get out to walk towards them, and I heard this sound. All the doors opened, and as I'm walking towards them, these little red dots of light are bouncing on my chest, not realizing that I was in their laser sights, and I just stopped and put my hands up, and this guy started screaming at me, get in your car, go back to the main road. And this was right after I videotaped this this disc.
You were still on public property.
I was still on public land.
Still on public land.
I was exactly 6 miles from the border.
I've done 500 shows on the Montel Williams Show. I have never, ever, ever done this before, but I'm gonna do this today. Sean, I live in Nevada. I live very close to where you're talking about. I live right in Las Vegas. I will take time on the week of during Christmas when I'm on break.
Yes.
You and I can pay a visit out there.
Absolutely.
And if this, Big Joe, come here, Big Joe. It's Big Joe. Joe is the head of my security, and I know with Big Joe, we'll be ready. We'll get clearance from the mayor.
Can we all ride in the back of the
We're
Jeep?
going.
Before the first of the year, Montel, because they're planning on confiscating that mountain where I took the
Done
videotape.
deal. I gotta take a break. We'll get you soon. I'll come back. We'll be back right after this.
When in the New York area, why not be a member of our studio audience? For complimentary tickets, call us at 212-840-1700.
Well, we've been talking about UFOs, and before I introduce the next guest, I've got to come back over and ask Karla this question. Now, Karla, I know for you this is a very serious issue, and you have been abducted, you have been taken, but for us who have never seen an abduction, for us who have never ever experienced a UFO, how can you have to understand that I have to be skeptical. It's like telling me that tomorrow the city of Atlantis is going to rise out of the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
No, it isn't.
When there are people who believe that.
Being skeptical means having an open mind. It doesn't mean making up your mind before all the data's in. And I hope you are skeptical. If people want to know what's happened to me, I have a book that's talked about it. It's a cheap little paperback that's worth, $5 to find out. We don't have time to talk about it here. But this has happened to tens of thousands of people. I do research with people for the last 5 years. We have cases going back to 1954 where after a UFO landed on a farm in Indiana and had abductions with every member of the family, the next day the military came en masse and sequestered the family for 4 days, wouldn't let them out of the house while they drugged and interrogated them as well. So I'm not the only one who's saying this is something I've made up in the last few years.
Okay.
It goes back at least to the 50s.
All right.
We have cases as recently as October of this year where people have been abducted by the military, drugged, threatened, and interrogated.
Okay.
It does
All right.
go on.
We'll stop right there. Because joining us right now is Mr. Russ Estes, who has been researching UFOs now for a 13-part documentary that he's producing on the subject. And I got to ask you, Russ, now you started this with an open mind.
Montel, I wanted to believe badly.
Okay?
Badly.
And what happened?
Well, aside from being told that I was CIA right off the bat, and told that my production company was CIA and I was out to destroy the whole UFO field, I found that the quality of the messengers were very poor.
Okay.
Yourself
And what did you
included
find?
from your own sighting a couple of years ago with your wife. Are you a poor quality messenger also?
No, we can talk about that also.
Let's talk about it.
that.
You had a sighting?
Matter of fact, I did. On the way back from the optometrist, which was perfect timing, by the way, my wife and I did spot an object in the sky. I live in an area that's surrounded by top secret test facilities, for starters. But we did spot an object in the sky. It was triangular. Pardon me. It was subnormal speeds. It was very large. It was an unidentified flying object. I could not identify it. Do I think it was extraterrestrial? No, I don't.
Okay,
No,
but
I
you
don't.
knew it was an unidentified flying
Absolutely,
object.
I couldn't identify it, but I can identify a 747 either.
I know we're running over and I'm running out of time, but in all your investigations, and how long have you been doing this now? How long have you been
2
investigating?
years.
2 years. You've been talking to people, you've been interviewing people. What's the one thing that's come up every single time?
Well, I've asked every single person I have interviewed if they have ever been approached by a government agent. The answer has always been no. They've always said nobody has ever identified themselves as a government agent. Now, that doesn't mean I've interviewed every single person in the field, but I've interviewed hundreds.
I have been, and they identified themselves as it and told me don't take on the government. The woman I work with, the associate
Well,
that
do
I
you
work
know,
with,
you have a description of
has
this
been-
lady? Do you know who she is? Do you have a description or a picture?
It was a man.
A man? Okay, you have
Yeah,
a picture of this
right.
man?
No, I know where he is.
You know where he is?
Sure.
Give me his address. I will find him. And then I'm not making veiled threats or promises. I'm here to tell you right now today on national television, I'm looking at the camera, Montel Williams is going to try to believe.
Government agents are under
I want
grace.
you-
They are not allowed to go public with
Doesn't
anything
matter if he
any more
does or
than
not.
anybody
I
in
want
the
to prove
military
if this
will.
person that you know where he is, if he is government or not. I'm going to find out. I can find out. I have some friends in high
And what
places.
is-
Montel.
I got to take a break. And I'm going to show you some photos that you will not believe. I have some pictures, some photos of a UFO that someone has taken. They are Polaroid kind of photos. Polaroid pictures of a UFO, and I understand the Polaroids are the hardest ones to fix and jam. We'll take a look at that, and we'll see when we come back.
Do you have an unusual personal story you'd like to share with us? Call Montel's answering machine at 1-900-933-3900. Each call costs 75 cents per minute. Do you have a freeloading family? If so, call Montel's answering machine at 1-800-MONTEL2.
We're talking about UFOs. I'm joined right now by Jeff. And Jeff, you took some pictures recently of what you thought was a UFO. Is that correct?
last summer I did.
Last summer. Let's take a look. Can we bring these pictures up, please? Okay. Let's see where the first one is. There it is. There's the first one. Now, where did you take this picture at?
That was up in Connecticut. We were at a big estate and doing catering.
Okay.
And that's the first picture I got.
Let me see the
that's
second.
even better. That's the first picture.
Okay.
Right.
Do we have a second one?
We should.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, that one is actually in the photograph. It's you can see it here. It's much smaller because it was further away.
Okay. All right, wait a second. Let me see. I'll run that
Just sort of
by.
took off.
Does this look like anything that you all have seen at all? Or that you
Not
know
like
of
I've
anybody seen?
Yeah, they're similar, but not like I've
They
seen.
look like anything you've seen? They do? Now, just how big was this aircraft?
Well, it's really hard to tell the size of something if you don't know the distance.
Okay.
But I've got a good guess.
All right, go give me an idea.
Let's see. I think it's probably about the size of this.
Oh.
Okay, and that's really what that is.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
With a piece of blue poster board and a Polaroid camera.
Okay. Now, I did this not to make light of anybody up there, but every time I see a photo, every time I see a picture, every time I see anything at all that looks like a videotape of this, I personally can't buy it because he recreated that. And how long did it take you?
About 5 minutes. Your people called me yesterday afternoon.
And bingo, that's how quickly it was done.
Montel.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, for joining.
Yes, Montel.
Yes.
My biggest problem, and this is what I've run into over and over again, is the quality of the individual that's bringing me the message. You know, the boy that cried wolf syndrome is phenomenal in this field. You get people out there that are saying, I'm this, I'm that, and I hate to do this to you, Sean, but here's a guy right here who claims to be the Dr. Reverend Sean David Morton. In his own biography, he claims to have gotten his Doctor of Divinity at, excuse me, it'll take me 1 second. Baraka University, Houston, Texas, the Baraka Church. I called them. They said they do not have any types of degrees that they give. They have Bible study at the best. He claims to have attended, excuse me, he claims to have attended University of Southern California. University of Southern California.
The point that you're making, Russ, is that there's problem with the messenger, so therefore the message is not real.
How can you believe the message when the people lie to you?
Well, let me tell you the one thing that I'd like to point out about Mr. Estes here is that when you don't like the message, you shoot the messenger. And it's obvious to me that in the UFO field, we do this for free. We do this because we want to know the truth.
Does that mean you
because we have seen something. That is not true. You are flat out lying to these people.
Russ,
you don't think I went to USC for 4 years?
Hold on just a second. Wait. Let me get this question. Yes, ma'am. Good.
I think that there is life on other planets, but I think that some of their stories are a little bit too far-fetched.
Well, but you know, I mean, how can we can't prove if there's life on another planet? I guess I should say on TV, look, if you could take me to any planet, and I'll go see, I
got a good point to make to everybody.
Yes, make it real quick, because I have to take a break.
All right, how many people read the Bible? How many are Christians?
Right.
What does it say about flaming chariots? You believe in Jesus? You believe in God?
All right, so I don't know what the analogy is. I don't know what the analogy is. I'm trying to figure that out.
The analogy for flaming chariots. What do you think they are?
Well, it could have been anybody sitting there. Back then, there was some people. Back in those days, there were some people doing some very heavy-duty pharmaceutical.
Yeah, they were all on a trip.
I'm not saying anything about the Bible. I'm just saying people were doing some strange things.
I'll be back. Grow up and understand that we're part of a much larger community.
I got to take a break. I'll be back right after this.
For a printed transcript, send $5 to The Montel Williams Show, Journal Graphics Incorporated, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 303-831-9000. For video cassettes, call Video Archives at 1-800-4VIDEO. Major credit cards accepted. Please indicate show date and topic.
We're out of time, and so I want to thank all of our guests for being here. And I will tell you that at the beginning of the show, we asked the audience how many believed, how many didn't believe, and how many were still, the jury was still out. And I think that the jury is still out. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Sean, like I said, I guarantee you, you will leave your name with my producer at the end of the show. Great. I will meet you in the desert. No ifs, ands, or buts. Karla, you give me the name or address or whatever you have on that person that you said was government, and I will find out about him in a way that you don't even believe I can find out about him. I have the resources to do so. I will do it. We will address it again on this show, and we will at least prove those 2 points. I will come out. You'll see another show about this probably at the beginning of the new year. Keep watching. I got to do one more, so we'll be back, we'll be back tomorrow, but watch, and I'll tell you when the show's coming up. Thanks a lot. Join us again on the next Montel Show.